All right. Hello, Ann. Thank you so much for joining us on the Flipping Junkie podcast.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm really excited.
Great, great. Yeah, I'm super excited to dig in and find out more about your story of, seems like you've done a lot in this business and industry, and I want to find out about your story. How did you get interested in this business, and just walk us through your story of how you got to where you are today?
Well, the first thing I would say is, I've always had an interest in real estate. As I was growing up, my grandmother was one of the top 3 agents in all of Orange County, Southern California. In the 80s, there was one year, I believe it was in the late 80s, that she did a little over 300 REOs by herself. Yeah, so she's just been an amazing inspiration for me moving into this business.
That's awesome.
So my background is actually in operations and logistics. I worked for a very large retailer here in the U.S. And what we did is I worked in the distribution center. So, it wasn't necessarily feeding who actually was, and it wasn't feeding my passion. And so I started flipping on the side, as many people start to do. And, I flipped a couple of homes and realized that this was really where my passion was. I loved the whole act of, planning everything and getting the, watching the progress and, actually seeing it through to completion. And that was just always so much fun for me. The way that we actually transitioned into the private equity side and going into a private equity company versus just flipping is, I realized that I wanted to do more for the people, more for my investors that we were working with. So we transitioned not to just focus on flipping itself, but we wanted to create longevity. We wanted to create a sustainable model. So we transitioned into doing a little bit more into the buy and hold side. So.
Yeah, and it seems like a typical transition is people realize that, man, I'm going to keep doing this to keep generating, revenue and income.
Correct.
And grow my net worth. And, the passive income, even though it's somewhat passive, depending on how you set it up, is the long-term play. So can you walk us through that decision, where you did make that decision to try to transition, and how did you make that transition from doing mostly flips to start doing the buy and hold?
Yeah, so I'm typically a very active participant. So I'm typically at the property every single day. I'm monitoring the progress, following up with with everybody on site, because that's kind of the type of person that I am. And I realized, being in Phoenix, we have very, very hot summers. So when I was showing up to properties and it's 120 degrees outside, and there's only so much bandwidth that I can provide. So if I'm showing up to every single one of our properties during the operational side of getting the flip done, it's going to limit the amount that we can do on an annual basis. So and on top of that, I have a lot of mentors. And I always stress coaching with it. Whatever it is you're going to do, coaching is always so very, very important. You find someone that is doing what you want to do, and you essentially follow what they're doing, because obviously they've been successful. So you find successful people to follow.
What kind of coaches have you had in what parts of the business?
I've actually had coaches in flipping. I've had coaches primarily in the private equity, and so that's more of what I focus on now, is more so generating long-term wealth. So the model of our company, the tagline for our business is generational wealth, one family at a time. Nice. And so that's what we're really trying to focus on. So a lot of individuals, I always heard from my flipping coaches, it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So you flip 3 homes, you buy a rental. You flip another 3 homes, you buy another rental. And so I've always loved that model, and I wanted to figure out a faster way to get that residual income, get more of that cash flow. And so that's how we developed, and that's how we created and moved more toward the private equity side. So we could just go straight into the purchasing of rental properties. So we still purchase like flip as if we're going to flip. We just do what I call rentivation versus renovation on those homes.
That's nice. So it's more of, renovation for rental, for durability. And is that what you mean by that?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So on a traditional renovation, we're looking at making the home beautiful so that we can sell it on the open market, sell it on MLS. And when I talk about rentivation is when we go in and we fix what I call the core 4, right? What are the 4 most expensive pieces of rehab that you're going to do on a home? It's the AC, the roof, the electrical, and the plumbing. So what we do now is we still purchase as if we're going to flip the home, as if we're going to do the renovation. So we're getting that 60 to 70% ARV. And the way that we are able to renovate, we can actually go almost all the way up to 85% ARV because of the low cost renovations that we're doing. So now we go in and it's really, really great. So we actually, utilize a lot of my flipping contacts. If there's a property that doesn't quite meet their numbers, they know that we're always looking to acquire more homes. And so they know that they can make a little bit of a spread and they can become, essentially a wholesaler of mine. And, it works out for everyone, which is great. So we go in and we do low cost rehab on fixing the core 4 items, right? Roof, AC, electrical, and plumbing. And our residents get to move in and we do lease options versus doing straight rentals. There are very specific circumstances in which we will do a straight rental, but by doing this lease option, we're allowing individuals to come in and they can make this house that they're moving into a home. So we allow them to paint the walls. And they have just such a sense of ownership because they are able to do the things that most landlords won't allow them to do: paint the walls, change the flooring. If you don't like carpet, you are absolutely welcome to put in tile or whatever it is that you want in your home, because ultimately we want to help you to move toward home ownership. And so we're essentially, I call it a bridgeway to ownership. And so we're helping them to bridge the gap between renting and owning a home.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So as a longtime house flipper, I know that some of these houses are complete wreck, right? So, do you have criteria to where it's more paint and carpet and then you guys do the big 4, but then, it's not like nasty, right? Even
we've had nasty.
You actually still lease them out?
Obviously we're going to go in. Great example, I bought a property about a little over a year ago, and it was an absolute hoarder house. It was about 2,000 square feet, and it took 2 full-size dumpsters to get everything out. The lot was huge. We found dune buggies, but we do something a little different. So I try to be very, very green, and that's one of the premises of our business. So the first thing we did is we went through and we collected all the valuables out of the home. So we found about 25,000 baseball cards. Wow. And so so the guy, we were actually helping, he and his wife were moving, and they said, we've only got enough room for 1 truckload. So he went through and he pulled out all of what he wanted out of the home. And, he says, I'm done. This is, I don't want anything else out of the home. Okay. So, he actually took out about 50,000 baseball cards. It was insane how many baseball cards this guy had.
Wow.
So we go through and we find all of the valuables in the home, and we will we will actually sell them on Craigslist or eBay or whatever it is that we can to offset our rehab costs. So that's the first thing we did.
Do you know how much you made off that one?
Off of that, so the baseball cards, there weren't a ton, so we ended up selling it to a card shop for like $250. Which is still great. So we went ahead and did that. Then we had a yard sale. And so we ended up making about $2,000 off of the yard sale.
Oh, nice.
So it was great. There was actually a dune buggy in the back. So the neighbor.
I love how you said you found the dune buggy. Like it was.
Yeah, trust me, we had to dig, and we're like, oh look, there's a dune buggy. Yeah. So the neighbor across the street came over and he says, "Did you guys buy this house?" We said, yes, he says, I've been asking that guy to sell me that dune buggy. So I'll give you $750. Okay. I said, but you got to haul it away. He's like, no problem. So his son just pushed it across the street, and
nice.
We had, so these are all of the things that we do to offset our costs. So then after we went through that whole thing, we called Goodwill. And so they came and collected a majority of the other things. And again, we still had an additional 2 dumpsters on top of all of these things that we were able to sell. So we ended up making close to about $3,000 in all between all of the stuff that we sold and the yard sale and everything. We offset our cost for at $3,000.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's a lot better than just like paying to get fill up more dumpsters, right?
Correct. And then we were able to get the tax write-off from all of the donations that we did. So there's just a ton of different innovative things that we do, and it takes a little more work, but it offsets a lot of our costs in the interim.
Yeah, it's a good idea. So, so if the place is, really bad and you guys do those things, but then like there's no working plumbing and bathrooms or something. I mean, do you guys do any of that kind of work? At least make it
Oh,
livable?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. We 100% make it livable. I mean, in Arizona, as much as in the Midwest and other parts of the country, they say that, you're required to provide heating. Well, that's a federal standard. It's not so, but in Arizona, we actually have to provide AC.
Yeah.
So therefore, on that particular home, we replaced the AC, brand new AC unit. There was some ducting that needed to be done. There was quite extensive plumbing issues that needed to be repaired. So we go in and we fix all of those things. We actually ended up tearing out floor and reinstalling floor into the home. And so we do a lot of those things, and we do it on a couple of different platforms to make sure that we are providing a livable home, but also a good home. And so we make sure that the bones are good. So this goes into the same criteria that many flippers look into, right? We want to make sure that, we're accounting for a lot of those unexpected costs. And so we always make sure that we have buffers within our budgets.
Yeah. So it's interesting if you don't do, because what I took from what you said earlier is that you don't worry about the plumbing, the flooring sometimes. And
oh no, those are the 4 items that we do take care of. So the roof, the AC, the plumbing, and the electrical, those are the big expenses. And we allow our residents to do.
I think I meant like the walls, doors, windows. You don't.
No, not necessarily. I mean, if they're broken, we will absolutely replace them. Okay. But we allow our residents to do more of the cosmetic items.
Okay, I see.
So yeah, so that they can make it
pretty livable. Something you wouldn't mind staying in for a couple of days or something.
I mean, that's kind of one of my standards is, could I live here? Right. And we focus on more so safe neighborhoods. And that's typically what I do. So we will drive through these neighborhoods before we buy a home. We drive in and we make sure that, I drive through around dusk, because that's typically when, people start to loud music, you get the shenanigans going on. Right? Yeah, exactly. So we will typically drive through those neighborhoods and make sure that
any gunshots.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of parts of Phoenix that we're not going to be buying homes in. But yeah, we have some very strict standards. We focus on blue collar neighborhoods, high C, low B type of locations, so that we can make sure that we're providing stability for the families that move in, because the majority of our homes are secured by families.
So what do you think that you typically save by not doing those cosmetic things that you're passing on to the people that lease the property?
As far as a dollar amount or a percentage?
Yeah. I mean, roughly just like a dollar amount. Yeah.
Roughly, we're probably saving about $5,000, I would say, because we're not necessarily going in and replacing cabinetry. We're not going to go in and paint the walls. Because here's the thing: if you're moving into one of my homes, I don't want to tell you what color you want your kitchen. And if I paint it, and this happened in my very beginning few properties that we did, I'd go in and I'd paint everything. We redo floors. And the first thing people come in and say is, I don't like this wall color. And so
that amazes me. Yeah, I see that too sometimes,
yes.
Where you see people move into a completely rehabbed home and then redo it. It's like, what?
Correct.
Yeah, I had a friend that did that, and I was like, man, how much have you guys spent? Like, they rehabbed the home and then you came in and rehabbed it.
Exactly. So if I spend $1,000 painting the inside of an interior of one of our homes, and then you come in and you're going to repaint over it, I could have saved $1,000 by not doing that.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
And one thing that a lot of investors do for the buy and holds is they look at, doing a nicer remodel to get better tenants. I mean, what is your take on that? Doing what your model versus that model of going above a little bit to make it to where you have better tenants paying you more money.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's a question I often get. Because we focus on doing lease option, we're providing individuals an opportunity that they otherwise wouldn't have had. If they could afford to get a mortgage now, and if they had the credit score and the down payment to be able to do that, they would be doing that. But there are certain things that are preventing them from getting there. But what we're doing is we're providing them an opportunity. And so therefore we actually can demand higher rents. So our rents are typically somewhere in the range of about 10 to 15% higher than the average rents in those neighborhoods, because we're providing them an opportunity.
Okay, so that's, so the opportunity is where you're getting the better rates and and maybe the better tenant, because they have the opportunity to then
exactly. We focus a lot on the psychology of it. So when we're providing you an opportunity and we're giving you an opportunity that others won't provide you, we end up getting better tenants. So I'll give you an example. We had a resident move in last April, and she moved into the home, and it was her and her husband and her 2 kids. The day she moves in, she has 5 adult males with her walking to the home. I'm like, oh my gosh, you understand that you're not supposed to be subletting, things that she says, no, these are my brothers. She says, we're tearing out all of the carpet. She says, I hated that carpet. Oh. We're tearing out all of the carpet. We're going to, today we're going to tear it out. Tomorrow we're going to paint. So she painted the entire interior of her home. So she brought her entire family, and then they reinstalled carpet.
Wow.
Into that home. And she's been a model tenant. She pays on time every single month, and I haven't heard anything from her since. So this creates a couple of different things. Number one, it creates longevity with our residents, and it also lowers our operating costs because we're not having to chase down when rent is going to come in. These individuals are very, very committed to the opportunity of having home ownership. And so we create that psychology around, this is your home and this is where you live. And we need to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what that means.
Okay, yeah, cool. So how does that process work? So whenever you're selling them on that opportunity, what are the terms that they're kind of agreeing to make that happen?
That's a great question. So I found that there were a lot of people that did lease options previously in many past years. And with the initiation of Dodd-Frank, a lot of people, it went by the wayside because a lot of people didn't understand the regulation. They didn't understand how to structure the lease option effectively and legally. And so we had quite a few attorneys go through all of our documentation and make sure that we're actually up to code. We're within the guise of Dodd-Frank. So what you always need to make sure to do is you never attach the lease, which is a completely separate and executable document, and the option, which is a completely separate and executable document. And so you need to make sure that you are structuring it correctly within Dodd-Frank to make sure that these are legal documents and that they don't reference each other. There's a lot of different ways to make sure that you are within the guise, because then there are certain ways that that things can be construed as a sale. And so what we do is to provide protection for our investors. They are completely separate documents where if the resident stops paying, we can still evict under the lease, right? So I was always taught, we want to make sure that the ball is always in our court, that we have the control. So that way, if anything ever goes wrong, we have the authority to fix it and to make remedies.
Yeah, nice. So they're basically on a lease.
Correct.
And because that other document's not filed anywhere, it's not.
Correct. Yeah, it's fully executed, but it just is not filed.
Right. Okay. And then, what about, and they're not making a down payment or anything? It's all just a deposit for their lease, right?
Yeah, we do have an option agreement, an option fee that is associated with our specific leases. I'm sorry, with the option.
And what is the typical?
Which is separate.
I mean, is any of the money for the lease going towards the purchase, or is it just the option to buy eventually? How are you structuring
it's the option? It is just an option to buy. So if you call it an earnest money deposit, that sounds like a sale, right? So that is construed. That is one of the indicators that can construe it as a sale. So you need to make sure that you're very, very specific, and you inform them that this is for the right to purchase at a later date. And so it's a fee. It is not an option. It's not an EMD.
And then what is the option like? What is that structured as?
So there are many different ways that you can structure it. I am of the opinion that I want to give them the best opportunity to execute on the option. So we provide 5, 7, and 10-year options, and we will work with the resident. We also work with our investors on the opposite side, because this is essentially how we create an exit strategy for our investors, because this is essentially how we would exit out of that asset. So if one of my investors says, hey, we're looking to retire in the next 10 years, what we'll do is on all of their options or all of their properties, we would structure those specific ones as a 10-year option. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So this allows for us to go to the resident and say, this particular home is on a 10-year option. So you have up to 10 years to execute. And so we allow them that time frame, because a lot of the way that many of the old lease options were constructed was typically a 2 to 3 year period. there are not a lot of many people that in that economic condition would be able to fix your credit and get your collections done, and also find 5, 10, or 20% down within a 2 or 3 year period. So it wasn't necessarily setting them up for success. So there's a very, very low execution rate on those options. So by providing them a longer term in which they can execute, we actually have a higher percentage of individuals that actually are able to transition to homeownership versus just always being a renter. And many times these individuals nobody in their family has ever owned a home. And so we're providing the American dream for these individuals, which is really, really fantastic. And for me, that's a win-win.
Cool. So how long have you guys been doing it? Have you guys been structuring those?
So we've been doing this. My partner's been doing it a little bit longer than I have. He's been doing this for about 10 years. He and I have, I've been doing this for a little over 4.
Okay. So you have quite a few people do it before the 10-year time period?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So and honestly, the way that we like to structure it is, when they are getting ready. So we typically contact them about a year to 6 months prior to the end of their option. And we let them know, hey, your option is coming. And again, I'm trying to set them up for the best success that I can. I'll contact them and say, your option is going to be expiring in the next 6 months to a year. Is this something that you're still interested in executing on? And if they say yes, I say, great. Let's partner you with a mortgage broker, and we will help them to get set up. And then that individual, we don't provide credit repair because it gets really sticky. So yeah, I'm not going to go down that road. So we'll always refer them to mortgage brokers that can help them, that work with first-time home buyers, or that work with people that have those credit needs. And we work with them to help them rebuild their credit, get some of those items 6 months to a year before. And so that way it's not a month before and you're kind of SOL. Yeah, we're trying to set them up for the best success that we absolutely can.
So what happens if they miss out on that option?
We'll have that conversation at that time, and we'll ask them if they're interested in re-upping on their option, or if they're looking to move or anything like that. Okay. So we'll provide different options for them.
Great. Yeah. So this has been very interesting, and it's a great conversation. We do have to cut it a little bit short today, but is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience out there, anybody listening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are just about finished. We're going to be doing a little bit of training videos. So if any of your audience is interested in getting some of our training videos, or some of our, ultimately some of the ways that we analyze properties, I would love to share that with them. They can either visit our website at amagrande.com. That's AMAGRANDE.com, or you can shoot me an email, which is ann@amagrande.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Ann. It's been very informational, and it's really good to talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Danny. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Have a great day.
You as well.